Ladies and gentlemen, and distinguished guests, please remain standing as the Tri-State Area Burial Group. Again, please remain standing as the Tri-State Area Burial Group will present our colors and escort the veterans. Also, please remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance led by NHS President Preston Dawson. After the presentation of colors, and the choir will be singing the national anthem.
Please join. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You may be seated. Ladies and gentlemen, let's take another moment and recognize our past and present service members. We appreciate your dedication and the sacrifices you have made for this country. Again, please stand and be recognized, veterans. Thank you. We would now like to welcome to the podium East Liverpool High School Principal, Mr. Brian Burson, as he gives our welcome message.
Good morning. I would like to welcome everyone to our 2023 Veterans Day program. Again, I'd like to just give a few thanks here before I kind of get into my message. I'd like to thank Mrs. Rail and Mr. Croxall for setting everything up, so thank you for that. I would also like to thank those students that have helped throughout the week and then helped this morning in serving breakfast to our veterans. So to those students, thank you. And then finally, I'd like to thank, again, Mrs. Rail, Mr. Green, Mr. Chisholm, and Mr. Cooper for coming here today and speaking to you today about their experiences in the military. So thank you to you guys. And again, obviously, the reason that we're here today is to honor and celebrate the dedication, courage, and sacrifices of the men and women who have served and are serving our country in the various branches of the military. We want to thank all the veterans and those still serving for coming this morning to give us an opportunity to honor them in person for all the sacrifices they have made for our country. So thank you again. Thank all of you again, and thank you for being a part of our program today. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Burson. We will now have a song sung by our choir. Thank you, Mr. Bunfill and the choir, for that lovely song. World War I, known as the Great War, officially ended when the Treaty of Versailles was signed on June 28, 1919, in the Palace of Versailles, outside the town of Versailles, France. However, fighting ceased 7 months earlier when an armistice, a temporary cessation of hostilities between the Allied nations and Germany, went into effect on the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month. For that reason, November 11th, 1918, is generally regarded as the end of the war to end all wars. Veterans Day continues to be observed on November 11th, regardless of what day of the week on which it falls. The restoration of the observance of Veterans Day to November 11th not only preserves the historical significance of that date, but helps to focus attention on the important purpose of Veterans Day, a celebration to honor America's veterans for their patriotism, love of country, and willingness to serve and sacrifice for the common good, and to reflect on those that gave their last full measure of devotion. Our first keynote speaker will be Tyler Green. Tyler is a 2003 graduate of East Liverpool High School. He enlisted into the delayed entry program his junior year and shipped out to boot camp in June of 2003. Tyler spent nearly 15 years as a mortuary affairs specialist, where he retired as a sergeant first class. Tyler deployed 3 times in support of Operation Iraqi Freedom and Operation Enduring Freedom, and also did a tour at the Dover Port Mortuary. Tyler spent his career ensuring families had their closure after their loved ones lost their life defending our freedom. He currently spends his time enjoying his kids and operating as vice president of a nonprofit organization named Austin's Army. Austin's Army is an organization that promotes positive mental health and suicide awareness. Please welcome to the podium, Mr. Tyler Green.
So first of all, I want to thank everyone for putting this together and for allowing me the opportunity to speak to you for a few minutes. Being here brings back a lot of memories. I remember telling my kids about the batting cage up there and how blood is probably still on the floor. Well, maybe not now because it's been painted, but Aaron McDowell decided to pull back a bunt and smack me with a line drive in the mouth. Aaron is still serving today, so I want to thank him for his service. But since we're here to commemorate Veterans Day, another memory comes back to me, and that's September 11th, 2001. And it's crazy to think that none of y'all were alive during that time, and you're learning about it in your history books, what happened to our nation. But for me, I was sitting in Buzzy Arrington's class that morning when we were all glued to our TVs and just watching what the world was seeing and our nation under attack. That's when the sacrifice started for me. Because that day I realized that I needed to do something, and I was going to serve in the United States Army. As you heard, I entered the delayed entry program my junior year, went to boot camp a month after I graduated, and about 9 months after that, I ended up across the sea on my first deployment. I was thinking to myself, what do I need to talk about? Should I talk about my service? Should I talk about all this other stuff? And if you didn't notice, the large group of flags that's sitting at the bottom of the hill when you come in. And so this morning it hit me. If you haven't noticed those flags, they're sitting about 250 flags sitting at the base of our high school hill. And what does that flag mean to you? To me, it represents all these veterans, those who are still serving, and the great nation that we do live in today. A lot of people will say, well, we have our own issues and there's a lot of problems here in the United States, but I'll tell you, from my time in service, I was in other countries: Iraq, Afghanistan, Kuwait, Tarawa, Vietnam, Thailand, Laos. And I can attest to you that we have it 100% better than what they do over there. So don't take for granted what we have here in this great nation and our freedoms, thanks to these veterans that are sitting here and those that are still serving across the sea today. I'm extremely proud to be a veteran, and I'm proud of all these veterans that are sitting here, guys and gals that I've served with, and I start thinking of words to describe that feeling: loyalty, duty, respect, selfless service, courage, strength, but sacrifice comes to mind. Think to yourself for a second, what does sacrifice mean? Ask yourselves right now, what would you be willing to sacrifice? What would you be willing to sacrifice for your mother or father, your brother or sister? Probably quite a bit, because you feel like you owe them a lot. What would you be willing to sacrifice for your friends, for your teachers, for your acquaintances? Probably still quite a bit. But what would you do to sacrifice for somebody you don't even know? A 13-year-old kid in California, an 86-year-old woman in Wyoming. The answer to that question, for all these men and women that are standing here or sitting there, myself and everyone I've served with, is our lives. And so that is the meaning of Veterans Day, to thank someone for that sacrifice, their service, their dedication to our freedoms that we do have still here today. But it doesn't just end with the veterans. I think about my children, my 3 girls. They've sacrificed a lot as well. And as a service member, our families go through a lot of sacrifice themselves. They've sacrificed time, dinners together, birthdays, holidays. Our close family makes me think of my mother and my sister. They were willing to sacrifice and put their lives on hold, not once, but twice, when my ex-wife and I both deployed at the same time. They stepped up and was able to take care of my kids for me while I was deployed. So sacrifice is the word that I would like you to think about when you think about a veteran. And on Veterans Day, or any day that you see a veteran or are graced with their presence, tell them thank you. Going back to the flags, I kind of had a moment before I came up here. And like I said, there's about 250 flags sitting down there. And I thought to myself, what would it look like if there was 1,956 flags standing out there? How much grass would it take up? It would probably go all the way up into the student parking lot. And you're probably sitting there thinking, Tyler, why 1,956? That's a weird number. Well, I'll tell you, in my 15 years, in my 3 deployments, in my tour at the Doverport Mortuary, I laid 1,956 souls to rest underneath that flag. And I'm not trying to be morbid or sad, because I take pride in that I was able to honor them and bring them home with dignity and respect that they deserved. I told them, well, they told me I had 10 minutes, so I think I'm pretty close to that. But I wanted to at least give you some insight and do some thinking. And don't be afraid to thank a veteran, because I thank each and every one of you. I thank those that I've served with, and it's been an honor to classify myself in a brotherhood, a fraternity, if you will, with each and every one of y'all. Even though we may not have served side by side, we still serve for the same purpose and that same reason, for that flag and for our nation. So I thank you. I also want to thank those that are still out there serving, keeping us safe, keeping our freedoms alive, because we do live in the greatest nation in the world. I want to thank the administration, Mr. Croxall, Miss Rail. Mr. Davis came out and helped with the flags quite a bit. I want to thank for that effort. I want to thank everyone for this opportunity to speak to you on Veterans Day. It means quite a bit to me. And I appreciate you guys taking your time out of your days to listen to some old vet talk about some stories and whatnot. So I want to thank everyone for their time. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Green, for your service. Our next speaker is Drew Cooper. Drew is a 1992 graduate of East Liverpool High School. He served in the U.S. Navy as a surface warfare officer from 1992 to 2003 and received an honorable discharge as a lieutenant. Mr. Cooper attended and received commission from the United States Naval Academy in 1996. He completed several sea tours in Florida and Maryland and served as a college instructor from 2000 to 2003. He moved back to East Liverpool 9 years ago with his wife Tamar and their 4 children. Please welcome Drew Cooper.
Good morning, and again, I just want to add on with what Mr. Green said, and thanking everybody that organized this. And I'm really thankful to see all of you students here to hear this. And most importantly, I want to thank the veterans that are here. And I know this is only a snapshot of veterans we have in our community, and especially fellow Potter family as well. The thing I think it's important about Veterans Day is, we appreciate you honoring us and thanking us and the veterans too, but sometimes I think it's important to realize, why is it important for you as the next generation to understand what Veterans Day is about? So I want to say some things here today, and this actually might make some of you a little uncomfortable, but also too, knowing how important it is that we need people to defend the freedoms that we have, because they can be easily wiped away. So if I took a look back at what I got the most out of my time in the Navy, I'll really point it to these 4 things. And I'm going to say the most important one is, when you're in the military, you are taught purpose. And what is purpose? Purpose is knowing why you're doing something, and that's very important to you. Purpose is when you have a fellow soldier willing to go sacrifice themselves for the rest of his squadron. Jump on a grenade or something like that. Why? How could somebody do something like that? And the problem is, in this day and age, in the society that all you kids, I would say young adults, whatever students, let's leave it at that, are growing up in, society is feeding you everything to you that it's all about you. It's not. When you move with a purpose, usually it's not when you're moving just about yourself. A purpose was when you're doing something greater than yourself. That's what it really means. So that's what service, like what Mr. Green said. It's when you are willing to do something greater than yourself, that's what the military teaches you. And I'll tell you right now, the thing that's really haunting for me, and I think for a lot of the veterans here, is we are in trouble. There is evil out there that wants to take all these freedoms that you want to enjoy right now and in the near future. It's crouching. Our military right now is weaker than it's ever been. The manning is down 20 to 25%. We are only seeing less than 1% of high school graduates joining the military. That means if we have how many numbers are in the senior class right now? 150? That means maybe one or 1.5 students of you are actually going to go in the military. Some of you that are graduating this year are really not sure what you're going to be doing come after May when you graduate. Some of you might want to go off to college. Some of you want to go continue to play sports at a college. Some of you just want to join the job force. Some of you just aren't sure. And I can tell you right now, it's probably really scary right now. But I'll tell you one thing you can decide, and there's an opportunity out there. If there's a place where you want to grow up faster than any of your fellow students, it's joining the military. Because this country needs you. They really do. And I'll tell you what else. On Veterans Day, we celebrate the veterans. Memorial Day, we celebrate those who gave the ultimate sacrifice, and that's giving up their life. And just like Mr. Green said, freedom is not free. It is not free. Anything you received was given to you, or somebody had to give something up for you to receive that. Most important thing that we cannot lose is freedom. And what is freedom? Well, I've traveled the world. I've been in Tunisia, a very third world country. You want to talk about where there's no freedom? I have a friend, Ben Chang, class of 1991, who was an immigrant with his mother and had the Chinese restaurant in downtown East Liverpool. When he got out, graduated from a high university, he moved to China. He came back into town a few years ago, and he had to have a second cell phone. You know why? Because the Chinese government was monitoring everything that he received. That is not freedom. All right? So when he went back there with his family, he is limited. He cannot just go off and start a business that he wants to. He can't go off and share his opinion the way he wants to. That is not freedom. However, there's regimes out there that want to wipe that away from you. The question is, what's the next generation going to do? Because it will disappear quickly. So that's my challenge to all of you, is are you willing to step up? It's not for everybody, I will tell you that. It is not for everybody. It's hard. One of the biggest problems they have with people going for the military is they can't meet the physical readiness test. So if you want to join the military, make sure you get in shape to go do that, because we need warriors out there protecting that freedom. But there's also things that I got out of the military as well beyond that purpose, and it's always living out serving with a purpose. Anything I do, even I ask my children, if you're doing something, why are you doing it? When we volunteer here in the community, why are we doing this stuff right now? Because if we aren't really sure why we're doing it, if you don't have a target, guess what? You're not going to hit it. So purpose. But the thing you got to remember, though, is there's so many other values you get out of, learning and being in the military. And I would tell you this, when it comes to after your military, future employment, as a current employer with our business, we look at the characteristics of what their skill sets and what they do and kind of who they are. Veterans are some of the top, most attractive employees after their service. And it's simple. They're actually very entrepreneurial. They like to start their business. They assume high levels of trust. Their skills they learn in the military can transfer across multiple areas. They exhibit high levels of resiliency. How many of you push yourselves to take a hard class? You know why that's important? Because that's how you start to build resiliency. Don't take the easy way. I'll tell you what, joining the military is not taking the easy way. But when you're doing it with a purpose, it's much greater than that. It helps you advance with team building skills. It helps you show strong organizational commitment. And it gives you a lot of experience in diverse work settings. So in other words, you learn how to interact with different people across different walks of life. So there's an amazing foundation, and maybe I'm making this a recruiting plug for the next generation. But it is scary, and I think it's important. First of all, we thank you for being here and listening, but my call to action to all you is, are you willing to be that next person, that 1% that's willing to go defend that freedom for the rest of us? Are you that one? I know there's plenty of people here that would love to talk to you about that. Second of all, my call to the school is this. We're good about celebrating athletics. I think it's important also to celebrate the current graduates that are serving right now with a board in the school. Let's put a board to identify the current graduates that are serving in our military right now, defending the freedom, so that we can even be here to even talk about it. All right? So I just want to thank you all for listening. Sorry if it made you feel a little uneasy, but I'm not sorry. But are you willing to make the call? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cooper. Our next speakers are Audrey Rail and Denver Chisholm. Audrey is a 2011 graduate of Beaver Local High School and has been a member of the Army National Guard as a 68W Combat Medic Specialist since October of 2019. She taught 5th grade for the past 6 years at Westgate Middle School and is teaching career and technical early childhood education this year at our high school. Denver is a 2008 graduate of Beaver High School in Pennsylvania and has been a member of the Army National Guard since 2017 as a 13F forward observer. He is an 8th grade math intervention specialist at the junior high school. Please welcome Audrey Rail and Denver Chisholm.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for being here today and being part of this. Thank you to Mr. Cooper and Mr. Green for being here and speaking. Thank you to all our veterans who are here today for your sacrifice and for serving our country. We appreciate you. Denver and I wanted to do just a little bit of like a question and answer today about our experiences in the military and how that's been going the past few years for us.
All right. Our first question is, why did you join the Army National Guard?
Go ahead, Mr. Chisholm.
I joined the Army National Guard to get more out of life. These seniors, where are the seniors at in here? I don't know if you guys remember 5th grade, I left you guys to join basic training. Seems like forever ago. So I was in my 2nd year of teaching. Teaching was going great. And I said, I need more out of life. Okay, I need a purpose. I teach kids every day. It's great, but I need something more. I'm competitive. I need something I can be competitive in and push myself and progress forward through. Army National Guard it was. So here we are.
I joined the Guard 2019. I had just moved back home. I was 26 at the time. Everybody in training called me grandma because I was older than everybody else. But I had joined because I felt like I needed some stability. I needed something to turn to. And for me, at the time, I was taking my master's degree in school counseling. And I received a couple emails about the Army. And one thing led to another. And I dropped my master's degree. And I left mid-year to go to basic training. So I believe the kids that I left that year they're freshmen now. And it was really hard to walk away from them and kind of take on something that was completely out of my comfort zone, but I did it and I'm here now.
What is your current job in the military?
So I am a 68W or a 68 Whiskey. That is a combat medic specialist. I originally was going to go in for military intelligence, but due to some unforeseen circumstances, I had to go back to Cleveland and re-sign for combat medic. I had no EMT background up to that point because the only thing I ever knew was teaching. So it was a whole new series of information for me to learn. My unit is the 237th out of Akron, Ohio. I've been on flu missions. I've got to give vaccines, different things like that. We're usually the only medical company in the woods. So anybody that gets hurt or needs something, they always come to us.
I am a 13 Fox forward observer. So what I do is I provide accurate and precise targeting data for our artillery pieces, which I know some of you have probably seen, like the cannons. You know, they pull the string and it shoots the artillery piece. The guys that pull that string cannot see the target at that time. So I'm probably hidden somewhere, staring at the target, and I'm providing data for them so that they're able to get effects on that target. And I also have a specialty skill, which I went to school for. How many of you have played Call of Duty? Probably most of you, because you don't do your homework anyway. You know, you get them 7 kill streaks, you pull up them binos, and you pull the little button, and then boom, you get an airstrike, right? So I'm able to call airstrikes, and it's actually the part that you guys do on Call of Duty is a very, very, very small part at the end of an actual mission. An actual airstrike mission takes about 20 minutes. So that's what I'm able to do.
What is one memorable moment in your military career?
I would say one of my most memorable moments, probably for basic training, was when I received my dog tags. I remember sitting out on the drill floor on the concrete, and they came around and they handed us our dog tags. And that, for me, was kind of like, wow, I actually did it. So that was probably my most memorable as far as basic training goes. Being out of basic and AIT, when I ended up in Louisiana for a month. Don't recommend anybody going to Louisiana in the middle of the summer, just in case anybody wants to go there, it's too hot. Our medical company was there, and we were taking care of all the real patients that came in, and they also had fake patients come in with cards, and we had to treat them as part of our training exercise. I had a gentleman that had come in, he was actually really sick, and for several days I had to take care of him. And when he was finally well enough to go, he came up to me and he said, "Hey doc, thanks for taking care of me." So that was kind of like I finally ended up where I was supposed to be, and it came full circle.
My most memorable moment actually just came this past May. My track guys, you know, I had to leave you and go to Tunisia for a small training exercise. And while I was there, I was actually the first United States JFO to integrate with Tunisian Special Forces and JTACs to successfully call an airstrike mission during training and get effects on the target. So that was pretty cool.
What was the most unnecessary thing they made you do during basic training?
Okay, so mine actually didn't come during basic training. I would do basic training every summer if I had to. That was fun. My most unnecessary moment came from AIT, which is right after basic training where you go for your actual job that you're going to do in the military. So we had I'll try to keep this quick. We had an instructor who wasn't very good. And he got mad at us on a Friday and said, by Monday morning, I want all of you to write a 100,000-word essay on what the Army means to you. Sounds cool until you do the math and realize that that's not even possible, even if you don't go to sleep the whole weekend. So as a platoon guide, so basically like the captain of the platoon, I did the math. I figured there's about 40 of us here. So if we each write about 2,500 words, I'll take them all to UPS, make copies, staple them together, and we'll turn them in on Monday. That didn't go well, so I don't recommend that, especially for the students who have Miss Bisnack and complain about her work. Just do your work, all right? So moral of the story, don't cheat.
So I thought you were going to tell the story of like the changing game of running up and down the steps. Okay, so I'll talk a little bit on that and then I'll tell my own. So when Mr. Chisholm and I had this conversation, we brought up the changing game, and what that was, that your drill sergeants would tell you that you need to be in your ACUs, which is your Army Combat Uniform. So you had 2 minutes to do it. So you'd run upstairs, several flights of stairs, you'd get up there, you'd make sure you were in this uniform, you'd fly back downstairs, get in formation, and they'd say, I didn't say that. You need to be in PTs. So then you had to fly back upstairs, take your whole uniform off, get into your physical fitness uniform, and then you'd fly back downstairs. Still wasn't good enough. So they'd make you do this several times in and out of uniform. And then it got to the point where we thought we were smarter than the drill sergeants, and we would be in this uniform but still have our physical fitness black socks on. So then they would come down and they would say, what socks you got on? So then everybody had to pull their pant leg up, and you had to show that you had these black socks on, and it was bad for everybody in the company. So that was something him and I both experienced. But personally, for me, my platoon was woken up at 2 o'clock in the morning to mop the sidewalk during a thunderstorm. So that happened more than once. So you never know what they're going to make you do, but yeah, 2 a.m. mopping in a thunderstorm.
When training in the field, what was the worst part of your living conditions?
Say that again?
When training in the field, what was the worst part of your living conditions?
Worst part would be 2019. I was in Death Valley, California for a deployment rotation as Op 4. So we stayed there for a month, and what we did was we practiced being the enemy force for another unit that was deploying shortly after that. And when we got there, we had a building with beds, and everything was not bad for about a week. And then we went out to the field, or desert, because there's no grass, and slept in a Connex, or like a big shipping crate. I don't know if you guys have ever seen that. And it had doorways cut out and windows cut out. And we went 9 days straight without a shower, which is probably not a long time for our veterans that have deployed. But this was all new to me. I've only been in for 2 years at this point. The temperatures got up to about 113 degrees over there. And you just sweat all day and then go to sleep in a hot shipping container covered in sand.
I would say the worst for me is similar to Mr. Chisholm's. I spent a month in Louisiana in June, and for 2 weeks we didn't have showers or any type of bathrooms, and we were also outside. We were sleeping in our tents. So they had gassed us at one point, so we had to be in what we call mop gear. It's the full gas mask and the boots and the pants, and that put us at about 130 degrees out there in that heat. So that was probably the worst for me, is experiencing that heat.
Our last question is, if you could share one piece of advice or a life lesson for us, what would it be?
One piece of advice. So you get one chance at life, right? We each get one chance because of them over there, all right? So with that one chance at life, I have 3 things for you. Do more than just exist, face your fears, and set goals for yourself.
My best piece of advice for you is not to be afraid of the unknown. I know in 2019, I was just a small town girl living in Ohio. In the morning and by night, I was getting screamed at in Fort Sill, Oklahoma. So don't be afraid to take the risks, take the chances. You're not going to know what the outcome might be, but it might be the best chance that you ever take. So thank you all for being here today. Thank you to the veterans for being here with us today, and we appreciate you.
Thank you, Ms. Rail and Mr. Chisholm. We will now have a song under the baton of Mr. Josh Sipe from the ELHS Pride and Stride Band. Thank you, Mr. Sipe and the band, for that wonderful American tribute medley. Please now welcome Assistant Principal Mr. Jay Kiger for our closing remarks.
This concludes our Veterans Day Assembly. I'd like to thank Ms. Reel, Mr. Croxall, our keynote speakers, Mr. Cooper, Mr. Green, and Mr. Chisholm. Your message and your continuing example of service is inspiring to each of us, and we thank you. We would also like to thank Connie's Corner Kitchen for catering breakfast in honor of our veterans this morning, as well as Mr. Bunfield, Mr. Sipe, for coordinating our choir and band. In addition, I'd like to extend our sincere thanks to my longtime friend, Sergeant First Class Mark Douglas, and the Tri-State Burial Group for presenting the colors and for your service to our nation. And finally, thank you to our veteran members of the United States Armed Forces who have joined us today. The students and staff of our school appreciate and value your dedication to our freedom. And once again, we thank you for your service. I would now like to ask the Tri-State Burial Group to retrieve the colors. few seconds to go out, and we will meet them as we exit the field house. But Potter Nation, one more time, show them what you think of them. Thank them for their service.